Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Dan Pardo and this is Pardo's Turn, my weekly Wednesday web series where I do a little song analysis from a music director's point of view and perhaps shed a little light on what makes the gems of our musical theater canon so great. On today's show, I am so excited to introduce Ellen Harvey, who made time for me in between her productions of Mame at North Shore and Gypsy at the Muny. You may have seen her on Broadway in Present Laughter or in the last revival of How to Succeed, or if you are like me, as Joanne at Barrington Stage's production of Company last summer. She was amazing. Together we are going to be serving up the worst pies in London from Stephen Sondheim's acclaimed musical thriller Sweeney Todd, which Ellen starred in earlier this year at Kansas City Rep. Sondheim is such a smart writer that the prospect of unpacking one of his songs, which inevitably turns into unpacking his entire score, makes the music director a little bit excited. Well, to quote another Sondheim show, excited and scared. I always feel like his songs are analyzing me, so when I fall short in this musical analysis, please let me know down in the comments. Okay. Worst Pies of London is a manic roller coaster of a number that does everything a great musical theater song should do. It forwards the plot, builds character, and makes the audience leap to their feet. This song is actually also really kind to the director, having much of the staging built right into the composition. Unfortunately, it's not that kind to the pianist, but I'll do my best. The A section of the song goes through a cycle of slightly anxious chords, played sharply and persistently, that don't have a particularly strong harmonic pull. But that's a good thing here. It allows the conversational melody to percolate in each tonality for a bit, jumping to the next chord when Lovett's almost schizophrenic focus changes, punctuated by these strong rhythmic stings. Considering the customer is always right, Lovett is so desperate for a sale that she does not let Sweeney get a word in edgewise. It's truly a one-sided conversation, and not even a monologue, as it's comprised of a battery of angular phrases that constantly interrupt herself. The B section is like a limping waltz that's roughly in 3, but can only go for a bar or two before losing tempo, adding a clumsy beat, or pausing altogether. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So forth. She's like a sad airplane that can't quite get off the ground, but she's endearing and captivating too, which the waltz helps establish. The melody runs up the scale in anticipation. These are probably, and then collapses in defeat. The worst pies in London. Her life, like her pies, are a little half-baked. But this song, her meeting with Sweeney, begins the start of a new recipe, obviously as a plot point, but also as a musical framing device. The idea of the waltz comes back for Mrs. Lovett in the brilliant Act 1 closer, A Little Priest. In it, her gears start going again, recalling some of Worst Pies both lyrically and musically. With a price of meat, what it is, when you get it, except this time she's not singing by herself, she has a partner in crime, and it so turns out, a dance partner as well. The history of the world, my love. It breaks out into a full-fledged waltz, felt energetically in one, bringing her failed dreams of before into full realization. And I'm not just talking about pies, I'm talking about Sweeney. A woman alone, times is hard, times is hard. Oh, I love it. No pun intended. Okay, pun intended. Hi, Ellen.
Hi, Dan.
How are you doing? Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So, Sondheim.
Sondheim.
You've been doing a lot lately.
I have.
Obviously we met doing Company.
Yes.
Then you did Sweeney this past, was it spring?
Yes.
At Kansas City Rep, was it?
Yeah.
And now you're doing Gypsy, which is partial credit.
Partial credit, yes.
Is this typical for you, or is this just a...
This is like a gift. I mean, honestly. I mean, it's... I was thinking about it, it's like, I feel like I've finally, grown into some of these parts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they both Joanne and Company and Lovett in Sweeney Todd were absolute dream roles for me as a teenager. But of course, you're never going to play them until you're the right age.
Unless you're in high school.
Unless you're in high school and then you do your fabulous production. And so I just feel like it's not been like a goal. I'm only doing this now. No, it's just I've been incredibly lucky.
As an actor, do you approach Sondheim roles kind of the same way you would any other? Is there special homework or?
No, and some people, I know I've talked to many artists who feel that they're like, oh, Sondheim's way too difficult. It's just way too difficult. And this is big, fancy artists too. But the minute that they start like working on the material and realize that actually it's all there.
Yeah.
It's all there. And so when we were doing Company, we had that talk back one day, and somebody asked me, and they said, how do you approach doing a song that is iconic? And I said, I approached it like a Shakespearean monologue.
Yeah.
I said, I'm a classically trained actress. And so for me, it is all about the journey and the roadmap. And so any song that I get, anything, I look for what the journey is within the song, especially with like Joanne, where it's like she has 5 notes. You know, what do you do with a 5-note song? Well, hello, there has to be so much more going on behind it. The amazing thing about Love It, it's so dense. Her range is all over the place. And in doing research on that, to see that Sondheim really thought of that as an operetta. He said he didn't even want to give it that name, though. He said it's between an opera and a musical. And he wrote it fully, the first time around, was as an opera. And then when he talked to Hal Prince about it, he said, you got to get a book writer here. We got to make it a little more musically out of it. So the actual demands, both vocally, physically, and emotionally, are actually more on par with opera than they are with your sort of standard fare musical.
Have you done your fair share of opera as well, or is that?
I was trained as an opera singer.
Okay.
And I was really bad as Flower Number 2 in Bohème back in college. But I trained privately. Like I said, I was trained as an actress, and I would study privately with opera teachers, because I thought that's the baseboard, that's the springboard of having an understanding of music, of everything, language, whatever. So to be able to apply all of that as well as my actor brain, and Sondheim's genius, was just like a major explosion for me to get to sort of dive into Mrs. Lovett. And it was, and the comedy. That's the other thing. The physical comedy, the broad comedy.
When we talk about operetta, that there's so much.
And the interesting thing too about Mrs. Lovett is, most of her stuff is patter.
Right.
Which is contradictory to what the Joanna and the Antony do. And to find out that the Joanna, all that stuff is lyrical. There's a reason that is lyrical. That is the love, that is the lyrical. Their stuff in the original melodrama was actually written in iambic. Like, literally the playwright of the original melodrama that Sondheim saw and wanted to do the musical for, it was all in iambic pentameter. And so that he realized the value of actually having your lovers kind of in a different rhythm than everyone else. So then you got Sweeney, who is just this truly opera sound. I mean, it is just gorgeous. And then you have this gnat of Lovett, who is just patter, 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 GNS, patter, 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 patter. And I remember one point in my head, I thought my head was going to explode. I was like, what is this song, God That's Good, and why do I have to do it in the show? Because at that time it was like I'd already done by the sea. I mean, going through the show, and I was like, oh, there's more patter. But the minute you get it into your body and you connect to it and you understand what is being said and what is being conveyed, both in the words and under the words, oh man, it's richer than anything I have ever sung in my life. The other thing about this character, and about Worst Pies especially, is that it's the first time you see her. And you realize that this is a woman who, one, she never shuts up, but two, she changes focus on a dime. And there's no thinking about what she just said. She follows a thought, she goes here, she goes here, she goes here. That is indicative. If you are, as an actor, I look at this and I go, that means it probably happens a lot throughout the course of the play. Not just in the songs, but probably in the scenes. And I remember very specifically of seeing the Pirelli death and responding appropriately, and then you go, oh well, and then you go on. And that's exactly, those were keys. All of that were keys, even in the dialogue.
Wait, what's your rush, what's your hurry? You gave me such a throw, thought you was a ghost. Stop a minute, can't you see it? Sit you down, sit. All I meant is that I haven't seen a kind of ever weeks. It ain't on you for a miser. Do forgive me if me it's a little vague. What is that? What you think we had the plague? All the way that people keep avoiding, no you don't. Heaven knows I try, sir. But the statement comes in even to a liar. Rot you wasn't, would you like a drop of ale? Mind you, I cannot that's polite, the worst pies in London. If you doubt it, take a bite. Is that not disgusting? You have to concede it. It's nothing but crusting. You drink this, you'll need it. The worst pies in London. And no wonder with the price of peach what it is when you get it. Never thought I'd live to see the day. Men would think it was a treat. Finding poor animals what are dying in the street. Mrs. Muny has a pie shop, does a business, but I've noticed something weird. Lately all the neighbours' cats have disappeared. Could you run into it? What a cause, enterprise, popping pussies into pies. What to do in my shop? Just the thought of it's enough to make you sick. And I'm telling you, them pussycats is quick. No denying times is hard, sir. Even harder than the worst pies in London. Only lard and nothing more. Is that not revolting or greasy and gritty? It looks like it's molting and tastes like, well, pity. A woman alone with limp of dead wind and the worst pies in London. Oh, sir, times is hard, times is hard.
So one last important thing. If you would like to see Ellen bump it with a trumpet, she is playing Mazeppa at the Muny this summer.
July 27th through August 2nd at the Muny Theatre in St. Louis, one of the oldest outdoor theaters in our country, and it is just fabulous. And it's actually starring Beth Level and Adam Heller, and amazing cast, and I get to actually like have a great time.
That's such a fun ball.
Stripping on stage. Yeah.
Ellen Harvey, stripping on stage.
Stripping on
See
stage.
it. Get one of those 10,000 seats, and it's celebrating its 100th.
Oh yes, Muny is celebrating
So
its
it's
100th anniversary.
Big deal, big casting.
All the shows this summer are like phenomenal, and so I'm actually really excited because I've never done Gypsy before. So
That's great.
So I get to do big comedy.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Check another one off.
Check another one off.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you. See you next week.
And no wonder with the price of peach what it is when you get it. Never thought I'd live to see the day. Men would think it was a treat.